Please remember to like and subscribe for more fanfics. Enjoy.
This is stupid. We regret everything. By BurntOutNgl. I want to say before continuing this audio reading that I do not own this story. Please check the description to find the story summary and support BurntOutNgl, the original author, on AO3. Chapter 11. The wind was as cozy as a cold pillow in the dead of night. Leaves blew around the class, dancing in intricate lines, as if mimicking the excited atmosphere the students possessed, before falling disgracefully as the atmosphere dropped. Now numerous kids were jittering about. It was finally the big day, the provisional license exam. The exam site they were assigned to was Takoba National Stadium, and everyone, besides a few, were all nervous, and they were in a huddle. A huddle. Just do your best to pass the exam. The better you get this over with, the faster you reach your dreams of becoming pro-heroes. The way Aizawa spoke as if it was a mantra helped calm the frayed nerves of his class. Suddenly, the small huddle they'd gathered in was interrupted by someone calling out to them. Chuya looked slightly confused as to who the kid was, especially when he'd bowed, smashing his head into the ground. To give an apology for interrupting their huddle, Chuya was forever grateful to the kid. Huddles were not his thing. "They're from Shiketsu High School, Chibi," Dazai informed, watching as the two classes made awkward small talk before Shiketsu walked away, which was replaced with more conversation with a class from Ketubutsu Academy High School, and, when they finally entered the building, a sleep-deprived HPSC worker, which genuinely annoyed the pair. Soukoku were instructed to sit on the bleachers with Shota and Mess Joke, while the now hero-suited participants waited patiently as the worker finished listing out their objectives to determine the 100. They were so happy they didn't have to stand down there. Twin Dark found the rules to be quite easy. 1. 3 targets will be pasted somewhere on their body by their choice, though they have to be visible. 2. Each examinee will be given 6 balls that will light up the targets when hit, and 2 people being hit is required to pass. 3. If all of your targets are lit, you are disqualified, and whoever got in the last hit will be qualified to continue. Quite simple to understand and complete, hence why Dazai understood only 100 could pass. "Hey jackass, you never did tell me what you were planning," Chuya pestered. Dazai was subjacent to him since the petite mafioso didn't want to sit next to a walking corpse. "Ah, right, well." A maroon eye stared discreetly into the alleyway. There was only one lamppost nearby, and it was a mile away, any light from it fading away into the dead of night. Dazai shouldn't be out here this late, but his newfound contact demanded to meet him to prove he was real. Hilarious. As if anyone would want to pretend to be him. There was a lanky figure in black standing at the dead end, scratching away at his neck. Whether it was from anxiety or annoyance, Dazai didn't care. His footsteps were quiet, like death, lingering near the fortunate as he stalked closer. His right eye bandage was missing, and he lacked a few other bandages, opting to replace them with long-sleeved clothes. Having the target potentially know who you're working with isn't helpful, especially when they'll try to use it as a way to make you abide by them, no questions asked. And people rarely recognized him without the white fabric wrapped neatly around his figure. "Shigaraki-san, we've talked on the phone, via text." The light blue-haired male jumped slightly, turning to face the shadows as his crimson eyes glared ferociously. He was beginning to open his mouth when, "My name isn't important currently, but I'd like to provide you assistance." Now he looked bewildered. He wanted to question it, Dazai can tell, yet he didn't. "How did you get my number?" "Ah, yes." A valid question that was, but sadly, still predictable. Dazai rolled his eyes slightly, though that caused the blinded one discomfort and the specks of light didn't help whatsoever. "I was merely stalking about. Not a lie, but not the full truth. Look, I understand your cause, and I agree with it. If you can give me the chance to help, I'll do whatever I can. But if not, then you'll never hear from me again. You speak as if you can give us what we want." Shigaraki's crimson blood eyes stared coldly at the teen, yet Dazai didn't sway. Instead, the brunette began playing with his jacket sleeves, a feigned, innocent look on display. "Perhaps I can. Though I can't promise you that you'd like it in the long run." A dazed look covered his face, adding to the innocence of it all. He truly looked like a kid trying to convince their parents what they're doing is all right, knowing it's the opposite. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, the man-child was beginning to act like a toddler. His voice began getting aggressive, and he looked about ready to kill the brunette. Just who the hell are you? Shigaraki in the future would find that he started looking down upon himself, especially knowing that it was the kid from a couple of nights ago. However, current Shigaraki was still ignorant of it. A smirk crawled onto Dazai's face. It was unsettling. He knew that. No, he wanted that. Anything less would be a sin for a creature like him. Look, do you accept the offer or not? I help take down the heroes. Society starts looking down upon them due to their incompetence, and villains rise, creating a fairer hierarchy, if that's what you want. Who knows? You could want to be the only ones in power, and all well that ends well. Dazai waited patiently for the man-child to process what he's been told. In truth, Dazai knows that in the long run, if villains took over, chances are that someone would get greedy, citizens suffer, and then the French Revolution would repeat. He is a strategist, after all, and if he didn't think of all the outcomes his actions could have, chaos would ensue within his very being, and despite the lack of love for himself, his brain is already chaotic enough. It's how he knew everything. It's why everything is so boring and predictable, because he doesn't let it be unpredictable. Even the small interactions with the Chibiko are thought out, yet they bring him something. The human cat post hadn't noticed how Dazai deflected the conversation, taking into account what the brunette spoke. What do you mean? I won't like it in the future. Dazai finished the sentence. His void-for eyes stared into the deep crevices of the other's soul. They were in their true form, nothingness. They showed nothing, for they were nothing. The almost black eyes, which were once a gorgeous chestnut color, looked like a canvas waiting to be decorated by colors and hopes, only to have the opposite done. Only to have its dreams crushed because the artist was going through something terrible, and lacked the love they once had for the craft. Shigaraki felt something cold shoot through his spine, and the alert part of his brain was blaring signals. It was written all over his face as his eyes widened, and he looked ready to strike, quite dissimilar to Mori, who looked as if he missed the optimal solution and wanted to rid himself of the teen, and strike he did. Unfortunately, he didn't get far since he was now on the ground in agony. A fresh bullet wound decorated his leg as dark scarlet leaked through his black jeans. Smoke danced around the gun's muzzle, yet Dazai looked calm. I don't have time for childish games. Quite frankly, I have somewhere to be in 2 hours. His dulled voice was like a glacier, and his bored eyes looked distant. Dazai absent-mindedly checked his phone. He planned to be back by 6. Not that this would take long, but he had something else in mind. Do you accept or not? Dazai recounted almost everything from last night with lesser detail. He also left out anything unworthy of being mentioned, such as him contemplating buying a plushie before grimacing. What are you planning? Chuya looked serious now. It isn't rare that Dazai acts on his own. Actually, don't bother answering. Ah, it seems Chibi is learning. Cheered Dazai. What was he planning? Loads of stuff. He had yet to settle on a plan. All of them were good plans, don't get him wrong. But he had the habit of making them more difficult and drawn out. And quite frankly, he wanted this over quickly. Dazed he was, as he watched the competition to pass the exam. Numerous students were out already, which wasn't a surprise, but Dazai was keeping an eye out for a certain participant, though that proved to be hard due to the terrain and distance, so keeping an eye out for anyone was difficult. Who's that participant? Toga Himiko. Despite not being involved when the love planned this, it was obvious they'd try something like temporary disguised infiltration. It's the predictable route in Dazai's opinion. So predictable, he's learned to pick up on cues when Mori would suggest such a tactic. Dazai despised Mori's tactics. Sure, they were logical and the optimal solution, but at times, they felt unneeded. Soukoku, as powerful as the duo may be, is unneeded in most situations. Not this one, however. Having your most powerful unit threaten a pest is the smarter move. But what Dazai's getting at is that Mori does unnecessary things to have power and build influence. It's a fact everyone is aware of, hence why he gets reluctant when Mori suggests having Oda or Kyusaku do anything, instead offering to do it. The brunette can feel the lust for power radiating off the boss, and he just knows that he'll do anything to achieve that lust. Especially since currently, he's been ranting on and on about wanting an ability business permit, which is smart to want since the government will stop pestering them every month or so. They are an illegal organization after all, and sooner or later, their misdeeds will be too much to be ignored. However, Dazai also feels that Mori won't try anything anytime soon. Perhaps in the future, but who knows if he'll be around for that long to see the man try something. He hopes not. Living past this age will be hell in itself. Dying at 16 isn't that bad a thought, right? This is to see who qualifies, yes? Dazai asked to no one. His eyes were steady on the general location of his class. They seemed to be holding out against the various attacks sent their way, considering the numerous explosions or attacks in the sky. But two people stood out to Dazai as unlikely way before the exam began. No shit, Chuya's eyebrow raised as he eyed his partner. Why do you ask? What are you thinking about? No reason and nothing. Who? You may ask. Why do you say? You may ask. And Dazai is happy to answer. Who? Todoroki and Bakugo. Why? Well, they'll both pass the current exam, but as of now, Todoroki seems too overconfident and is rather a lone wolf, like Bakugo. There's also... Oh, is that a beacon of light? It caught everyone's attention before it bored Dazai. How predictable. It was 58th of everything that could happen at this exam. Where was he in his thought process? Oh, the first exam has concluded. If Dazai's thinking was right, everyone should have passed the kid from before Inasa, and they'll work terribly together for some time, which would result in them both failing if they don't put their differences behind. Why Inasa, you may ask? Well, it's obvious the kid holds some sort of bitterness toward Todoroki, most likely due to who his father is. Dazai will spill why Bakugo when the next exam begins in a few minutes. The last exam is a rescue scenario, and here's why Bakugo will fail. Bakugo will fail due to not saving anyone. This is a provisional license exam for heroes, after all, and Bakugo seems more focused on beating up villains than saving citizens, which is the top 1% priority of being a hero. That should change in the future, though. Chuya stopped paying attention to the exam some time ago, instead opting to listen to the conversation between their teacher and Miss Joke. Everything that leaves Miss Joke's mouth is to try and incite a laugh from Aizawa, but fails, while Aizawa always says something pessimistic about his class, or completely ignores the conversation, especially when Miss Joke says he got a soft spot for the class. As of now, Aizawa made a comment about how the class would fall behind for this exam, and Chuya can't help but think that's a bit harsh. It's hard to tell how anyone is doing, but an explosion happens minutes after the exam begins, and a broadcast appears alerting the examiners that a villain has arrived. Chuya sinks into the bleachers. He was bored out of his mind. Dazai was too busy making predictions with his brain, and conversing with teachers was boring. Say, how come those two don't get to participate? Ms. Joke asks, smiling at the teens. Because they haven't been here for long. If someone comes to a new school when a big exam is happening, leaving them small time to study, you wouldn't want them to take it since it would be unfair, would you? I suppose not. Well then, perhaps they can take the training courses? Aizawa thought about it for some time. The training courses are a good idea since it allows for them to train on what they fail at, or what they need to improve on, but considering Nezu already gave them permission to attack without hero licenses, it's safe to assume any authority is aware too, and that Yokohama has different regulations when it comes to using powers. That won't be necessary. Now Miss Joke looks confused before laughing it off. Understandable. Oh, look at that. Chuya looked down towards the exam as Dazai spoke. An unstable wind of fire engulfed Gang Orca, the villain in this exam. Also the 10th hero. Everything else seemed to go by fast as flashes of green, revealed to be Izuku's kicking, seemed to strike Orca. Yet that didn't do much to him before finally, the exam ended due to everyone being rescued. As expected, Todoroki and Bakugo failed. Along with the Inasa kid and someone named Kami, the person Dazai assumes Toga impersonated. The rest didn't matter. As they leave and the licenses are handed out to those who passed, Dazai hears a glimpse of the conversation held by Izuku and some random kid he didn't bother learning the name of. Kami? Concealing technique? Sorry, but she hasn't been acting herself and left early. The latter informed Izuku, who looked confused at the information. Dazai grinned happily. The indirect confirmation that Toga was here pleasing the knowing part of his brain. Returning to Heights Alliance, the entire class was tired, yet still engaging in conversations that blurred together, all consisting of one singular thing: how excited they were to finally have default permission to jump into battles. Dazai strolled his way to the kitchen. Technically, it's Bakugo's turn to cook, but he's locked himself in his room due to anger, so Dazai is taking it upon himself to make something. Now, to get the record straight, he isn't a bad cook per se. Odasaku compliments his cooking all the time, such as his 26th creation, lively chicken hot pot. Gives you a boost of energy and makes you wide awake, especially if you stayed up the night before. Though, Oda's only complaint was that it made him extremely groggily the next day, in which Dazai then had to divert the conversation away from the topic because Odasaku started asking what he put in it. So, yeah, he's not a bad cook, despite his cooking also looking like Satan dragged it into hell and shoved it up someone's ass. So he doesn't know why he's banned from kitchens every time he and Chuya have to share apartments. What the hell? Dazai, get out the kitchen. You know you're banned from them. Chuya reprimanded. Dazai pouted, sticking his tongue out. But Chuya, I'm not a bad cook. Tell that to Kyusaku and the time they got sick. Don't blame that on me. Chicken Hot Pot 8 sickness begone did indeed cure him of his sickness. Please stop naming your diabolical creations and yeah, for a day. It made it completely. Worse after. Dazai dramatically exited the kitchen and up the stairs to his room. Chuya sighed harshly, rubbing a hand down his face. Dazai was currently sitting outside. It was dark out and cold. Sitting on the edge of the building facing ground beta, he caught the small glimpses of green and blonde hair. There wasn't a reason for him to be out here. He wasn't even here to watch or calm the fighting between the two. No. It was a typical failed suicide, though can it be considered failed if he never got to it? It was quite simple why he didn't jump and plummet to his long-awaiting death. The school has security robots, and if they were to alert him falling, then there would be a chance of some fast hero saving him and plummeting to their death with him, or failing to save him all due to no longer human's unforgiving nature. Frankly, Dazai wants to commit a suicide that doesn't inconvenience others, so now he's sitting on the roof, contemplating his decisions, skillfully climbing down the building. Yes, climb. He climbed up it. Why should he take a different route? He stalked closer to the drama. Truthfully, he had an inkling about Izuku's power, yet he needed solid proof, and this could be his proof. The talking was faint. Bakugo was speaking his heart out as he clutched his fists in an effort to restrain himself. Then, did you get your quirk from All Might? The question was simple, yet effective. The blonde went into detail about how he came to the conclusion, and how he asked All Might about it before, but the man just kept quiet and never answered, so now. He was asking Izuku. Dazai, in all honesty, found everything to be so melodramatic, but the quietness from Izuku was a silent enough answer to please him, while also displeasing Bakugo, so he turned to leave, letting them duke it out like the idiots they were since it's way past curfew. Once he made it into the dormitory, the sound of explosions and shouts ameliorated, yet he didn't panic. A concerned look laced his face as he walked into the kitchen, pretending to grab a cup of water. When Aizawa exited his room, a glare on his face, he made eye contact with Dazai and opened his mouth. Why are you awake? What? Is getting water illegal now? Dazai asked, annoyance on his face. Aizawa shook his head, muttering an apology before asking. Do you know who is fighting outside? No, sir. Aizawa nodded before waiting by the door, capture scarf in hand. Dazai left Chuya's room, cup of water in hand. A couple of minutes later, Aizawa scolding the two as All Might half explains the situation was faintly heard. Dazai drowned out the noise as he picked the door, entering to find Chuya sprawled out on his bed, drool dripping down his chin. Dazai smiled, walked over to his partner, and dumped the water on him, jumping back to avoid the surprise kick sent his way. Bad dog, mumbled the brunette, who was currently in fish pajamas. Ha! How hilarious it would have been to have his corpse found in fish pajamas. Dazai? What? Hell, get my room. Chuya's voice sounded raspy and his voice turned into a whisper at certain words. Dazai just smiled. Poor Chibi, you got drool all over yourself in your pillow, just like the dog you are. Said drool pillow was thrown at Dazai, who scrunched his face in disgust. Bad, bad dog. Chapter 12. It was now second term, and the two main rivals of the class were on house arrest. How lovely. Majority of the class was displeased that the Ball of Sunshine, Izuku Midoriya, and the renowned Pomeranian, Bakugo Katsuki, were rather reckless, but were hoping they'd reconciled. Soukoku, on the other hand, were insouciant of the situation, however. When the others looked to them, they had to feign worry. Currently, all classes were standing outside at ground beta. Nezu was up front. Dazai caught a glimpse of the wise look the bear mouse gave them, the two mafiosos out of the entire school, yet he paid no mind to it. The principal annoyed him slightly, if he were to be truthful. Outsmarting others is easy because they lacked the brain cells to keep up with his mind, so it doesn't feel nice to know a literal animal can keep up with him. It's like an insult. Pointless conversation was made before the white furry creature got to his point. How All Might's retirement will have a negative effect on society as a whole. Lots of rubbish if you were to ask Twin Dark. Heroes existing already have a negative effect, yet no one pays any mind because of how flashy they are. If Dazai could recall the brief video they saw of Mount Lady's debut, she was acting how celebrities in Yokohama would act toward cameras and the public. Flashy, show-offish, and secretly competitive. It's why Chuya could never comprehend why people are so obsessed with the famous. Working in the mafia makes it to where it's hard to have heroes or favorite celebrities, because there's dirt on everyone you can imagine. Heck, one of his good friends in the mafia was an active movie star. The only difference is that, at least in Yokohama, you can state your opinion without being seen as a threat to society. And boy, if they weren't on a mission, all of the mischief they would cause by openly hating heroes would skyrocket. Quite frankly, the speech was motivating, vexing at certain parts, but considering how these people were raised, it was as lovely as it could get. But please get them to change their school motto, or whatever the fuck plus ultra is supposed to be. As everyone was beginning to leave, Hound Dog came to bark at them, literally. Dazai never felt more disgusted at dogs. His face scrunched up, slightly messing up the features most would compliment him on. Chuya, I think that's your long lost. Chuya was about to attack him when someone Vlad King spoke up, translating for the dog on stage. There has been a fighting incident last night, so we, as teachers and future heroes, ask you all to conduct yourselves in ways that respect your current lifestyle standards. Kids began to murmur as they were finally dismissed, asking around as to who was fighting. Perhaps to crucify them, perhaps to do what teens do, which is gossip and embarrass whoever. They are teens after all, and can be unforgiving. Chuya would know because every time someone betrayed the sheep, nasty remarks would spread about them. However, Chuya hadn't a clue if it was always like that, or if it only started because if those kids retaliated, the sheep's king would deal with them. Not that he ever had to or would. They were once considered family before they broke everyone's trust, after all. Now that he was thinking it over, the sheep truly was an organization of unforgiving kids, especially if they felt that you owed them of anything and wasn't paying your dues in a pleasing manner. Not to say he doesn't miss them, they were the first family he could remember. Perhaps the kids surrounding him being upcoming heroes will make some difference. The walk to class was as loud and energetic as it possibly could be, with numerous students walking toward their classes. Chuya was peeved, but he didn't mind. When it was too quiet, he could hear the rumblings of Arahabaki. Not that he, caused him much trouble. Arahabaki was nothing more than an empty shell of what could have been. No personality and nothing human about it other than its vessel, something that Chuya has slowly come to terms with, though there are hiccups. Hence why the majority referred to it as a god. Arahabaki was anything but. Starting from today, regular class activities will ensue, was the first sentence out of Aizawa's mouth the moment the class calmed down. And training will be harsher than last semester. Some kids paled at that minetta, while the rest looked determined, ecstatic even. Suyu took it upon herself to ask about the hero work studies, piquing the interest of a lot of people, including Chuya, who was curious to know for no particular reason other than to be curious. Hero work studies is merely off-campus hero work. It's a more formal version of the hero agency internships you've guys done. Well, almost all of you. It didn't take an idiot to know who he was referencing, and all Twin Dark could do was look bored. They didn't participate in the UA Sports Festival, so they'll be left without anyone scouting them out, unless someone decided to take pity on 2 transfers, or at least that's what Dazai began Morse coding to Chuya, who was getting annoyed at the melodramatic tapping of his partner. Seriously? Why does he have to drag out tapping his fingers? The hero work studies are here to make use of any connections you've garnered during the sports festival. Dazai, Chuya, because you both weren't here during that time, chances are. You won't be able to participate, especially without provisional licenses. A knowing smirk flashed on Dazai's face as Chuya shoved him slightly, sulking in his seat. This entire situation could have been avoided if the place granted them licenses from the get-go. But that would have been suspicious, especially for a pair of teens who supposedly come from a place where heroes are despised. Better yet, this entire situation could have been avoided if they were allowed to reveal themselves, but that puts their covert protectees in danger. As Aizawa was done explaining how the provisional licenses allowed them to do longer, formal-term activities, causing Chuya's heart to ache more since he was tired of school at this point, Yamada, or present Mike, entered, signaling to Aizawa that homeroom was over with. Chuya, noticing movement from his peripheral vision, turned his head slightly to find Dazai discreetly typing fast on his phone. His face was neutral, but the slight narrowing of eyes told. He was peeved. Chuya will ask later. Classes went by fast, and it was now lunch, the one period they constantly avoided to search around the school and eavesdrop. Only today, Mina invited Chuya to sit with her and her group dubbed the Baka Squad. Dumb name really, but Chuya found it to be rude to decline since she did go out of her way to ask. Chuya eyed Dazai, who gave him the okay slightly. He has no issues not hanging out with the brunette, but this was a place filled with new suicide theories he could try. And yes, theories. If the brunette finds that the suicide method is more torture or painful, he ignores it. Surprisingly, Uraraka and Iida decided to invite the suicidal fish to sit with their group dubbed the Deka Squad. Oh, Chuya can see what's happening here. Considering he shares a similar personality with Bakugo, it makes sense to have him sit with the squad dedicated to the anger issue's manifestation. And since Dazai is smart and well-behaved, if only they knew how he actually was, he's been automatically adopted to the Sunshine Squad. How ironic that is for the brunette. He is anything but joy and rainbows. The walk to the lunch rush cafeteria, adorable name in Chuya's opinion, was rather awkward since Soukoku didn't bother getting close with their classmates. What? It's a bodyguard mission. Not a get along with all, in the traditional sense of hanging out. Yes, there was idle chit-chat. They weren't unfriendly nobodies that lived in their parents' basement, okay? So, how is Yokohama? Awkwardly asked Kaminari, the kid with poor control over electricity. Sorry if that sounds rude, but we've been meaning to ask. You and Dazai are rather untalkative to anyone but each other, you know? Okay, now the environment was entirely awkward. Denki, hush! Mina put a finger out to him, her alien-like eyes narrowing before she looked at the ginger with excitement. Sorry for his awkwardness, but what he said is true. We've been curious about that place for a long time, so it's wonderful to meet its natives. Oh well, it's not that exciting, really. Dude, all the rumors surrounding that place, all the pro-heroes going missing. There has to be something interesting. Sero looked almost offended. Perhaps he didn't like the dismissive tone Chuya used when referring to a city people deemed a hero-killing one. Well, that's the thing. I wouldn't know much about it. Chuya shot a glare at the human tape dispenser. The ginger just found a new pet peeve, people insulting, directly or not, his birthplace. Wow. Who knew such a place would be wonderful to find things out about yourself? Oh, that's right. I don't think we ever asked how you guys were able to transfer. I don't think I ever heard of UA letting in transfers. Kirishima had the picture-perfect expression for curiosity. Everyone looked at the ginger with eagerness. Chuya felt vexed that they waited so long to ask, but again, he and Dazai never made an effort to be more social than required, so he apologizes for that. Dazai and I come from an organization in the more populated parts of Yokohama that thrives off wanting to be heroes. Oh, how Chuya mentally cringed at speaking the words. He'll have to wash his mouth out later, and Nezu caught wind of us from a pro-hero breaking in was left unsaid but heavily implied, and gave two members the opportunity to attend this school, me and Dazai. The explanation was quick and easy. The exact backstory Dazai gave Nezu and Aizawa when they were first asked. If the kids were smart enough, they would notice that the story doesn't make much sense. How would Nezu contact them if pro-heroes get kicked out of the place in record time? How would a pro-hero know about the organization if they get kicked out in record time? All questions Dazai brought up when the backstory was first given to them via text. Chuya will have to think them over. So cool. What is the organization's name? Uh-oh. Chuya's brain had skipped over that part. Oh, it was an organization of many names. It had to have many because lots of people don't like it, or what it stands for. Simple. That was the answer Dazai instructed him to give when asked an unsuspected question. Vague, but many possibilities. So, if Dazai were to be asked the same question, any answer would go because it's an organization of many names. Chuya didn't like most of Dazai's plans, but he liked how reliable they are, which causes him to like them a tad bit, but don't tell the mackerel that. His head is already inflated. Oh, gotcha. Makes sense, especially in a place of hero haters. I heard rumors of Yokohama being gloomy and having many suicides. Is that true? It was taking the power of many gods and the spirit of Kuyu herself to not destroy this entire hall right now. No, I don't find Yokohama particularly gloomy. Like any place on Earth, it has people struggling, and the numbers aren't that high. Chuya had to dim the fiery glare targeted at the group of teens. He forgot, just for a moment, they aren't the teens accustomed to minding their business, which should say a lot about Yokohama if objectively normal teens act like this. Do they? The mafioso's voice started sounding strained. However, they mistook it for sadness and uncomfortableness. That was very far from the truth. Chuya was fighting the urge to start cursing at them like a sailor. He was not about to prove them right about inviting him to their squad. Oh, sorry if we're bringing up unwanted memories. Unwanted memories? The god inside the ginger was doing nothing to calm the rage within him, yet he tried to keep calm. Truly he was. No need. Was the only answer they received as they finally entered the cafeteria and went to pay for their food. Chuya was a tad astonished by the affordable prices and large portion sizes. When he was a street kid, there was hardly any money to get even affordable food with decent portions, especially for an entire organization full of starved kids, and as a mafia member, he could afford whatever. And trying expensive food to compare if they're worth the price is always a fun pastime with Kuyu. And when it came to cheap food, he only stuck to the ones that were easily accessible to him as a street thug. So seeing the prices displayed to him was making a small part of him envious at the fact similar places don't exist in the slums of Yokohama. The food tasted even more amazing. You could taste the absolute love and effort put into it. Out of pure curiosity, Chuya eyed Dazai for a while, making sure he was eating. It's not that Dazai didn't eat, he merely enjoyed eating crab, and his appetite wasn't a large one. In the past, when Chuya expressed concern about it, the brunette just said that's how he came out of the womb. However, Chuya isn't quite sure if he should doubt it. There were a few kids. In the sheep that grew up in privileged environments, after all, before their lives got turned upside down, and they too lacked large appetites. But being 5 feet, 8 inches, 5, and 3 to 18 kilograms under the ideal weight for a male has to be concerning in some way, right? Or at least that's what the medical textbooks he reads from Dazai's personal collection that he definitely did not steal from Mori tells him. He wouldn't know. He isn't a medical connoisseur. Say, Chuya, what is your relationship with Dazai like? Chuya nearly choked on his curry. What? Was all that left him as he tried to calm his nerves. You keep looking over to him with concern and you both never leave each other's sight. Mina purred as she leaned closer. Don't worry. I won't snitch. Chuya looked at the girl as if she'd grown 2 heads, which wouldn't be that much of a shocker in today's society. There's nothing going on between the two of us. I despise his ass. We're rivals. Nothing more, nothing less. You know who says that but looks at their supposed rival like that? Oblivious folk. Mina nearly stood up to dramatically slam her fists into the table but stopped. It's almost like it happened in the past and she got in trouble for it. I have never in my life seen rivals look as if they want to smash their faces together. Chuya's face felt hot and mushy. A scowl took place, baring his sharp canines, which just add to the dog insult. There is nothing going on between us. Geez, I would rather dye my hair a muddy green color than be seen with him. Yet, you're always seen with him. And I don't see muddy green in your hair. Mina grinned, her eyes squinting. Truthfully, Chuya never bothered to think about his relationship with Dazai. Yes, they were partners in the professional sense, and they could be considered friends, perhaps best friends. Yet anything more than that seemed like a stretch to them both. Mina was now staring as if Chuya was some confused puppy. Her eyes held pity as she pitied the animal for its situation. Oh, poor you, she mumbled. Don't worry. By the time this week is over, you won't be oblivious no more. Chuya now had an agitated expression, which reminded the Baka squad of their dear blonde. Could those two be long-lost relatives? Nah, Let's leave the theorizing to Todoroki.
Thank you and subscribe for more Bungo Stray Dogs fanfictions. Let me know what was your favorite scene.